So today it's all about Meren of Clan Nel Toth. Now, first came out in 2015. Let's see how she holds up in 2024. Let's do this. So first card on the list is obviously the commander, and that is Meren of Clan Nel Toth. She costs 2 black and a green, a legendary creature, obviously, human shaman, and she's a 3/4. She reads the following. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter, and at the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's mana value is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. I'm going to start off with card draw, but before we get into it, I'm not going to go through an in-depth analysis of every single card, so that'll just take forever. So I'm going to go through every section, so to speak, that I've laid it out. And we're going to start with card draw. There are a few cards in here that are worthwhile annotating, let's say, or speaking out about. So let's just get into it, and we'll explain why they are good in this specific deck. So first off, we've got Village Rites and Corrupted Conviction. It's basically the same card, different name. 1 black mana, additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. That's great stuff. So yeah, we want to sack creatures to get experience. We want to draw cards so we can keep churning through our deck to find our answers, to deal with our opponent's stuff, to make sure that we can win. Yeah, easy enough. Every good deck should have a solid card draw plan. Okay, Skull Clan, what can I say? There's a bunch of creatures that have 1 toughness. Yeah, click this onto them, draw 2 cards, they die, Meren gets experience. Or you get experience, not Meren. Grim, just whenever something dies, you're going to draw a card, so it turns your card draw spells into drawing 1 extra. Great stuff. Midnight Reaper could be on the cut list for some people. It deals 1 damage to you when you draw a card. Obviously, something's got to die to trigger this. Sometimes we can sack a lot of creatures, like 4 or 5 a turn. So and remember, this is whenever a non-token creature you control dies. So if people board wipe, it could affect you, or if people hit you with targeted removal on certain stuff, it's going to affect you as well. So it could ping you out. So it's not irrelevant. So yeah, could be on the cut for some people. Phyrexian Arena is just a great card. Same with Guardian Project. Just remember, Guardian Project doesn't care how it gets to the battlefield, just that it's in the battlefield. So when a creature enters the battlefield, however that happens, you're going to draw a card, because obviously nothing has the same name because we're playing Singleton. So yeah, good stuff. And Mulligans Reclamation, just gain life, draw a card whenever creature you control dies. Obviously we're going to be killing stuff, so great stuff. Could potentially remove that one if you wanted, because it is quite high on the CMC. So with that card draw done, we need some fodder. We need some stuff to sacrifice, and we're going to do that with things like Desecrated Tomb, Tombstone Stairwell, and Grave Titan. These are all going to generate tokens for us that we can then sacrifice for scrying, drawing cards, etc. Or even if it's just to get our experience counters up, so then we can recur something from our graveyard that's bigger. These 3 cards do that absolutely great. Remember, Grave Titan also triggers on attack, so sometimes it could be worth attacking into non-favourable situations, so they block it, but you still get your 2 tokens, and then you can just reanimate this. So yeah, awesome stuff, but not much going to be happening in the attack step in general. Next we have our ramp spells. I'm going to say card draw again. Next we have our ramp spells. These are all super simple stuff that you've probably seen a million times before in reanimated decks. So we've got Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, we've got Steve. Does anybody know the origin of why this is called Steve? I need to learn that. Satyr Wayfinder, which is just great because it mills you and you also get your land. Farhaven, Spring Bloom, Wood Elves, Yavimaya. Remember, this has got Echo, so it dies, so it helps get experience. And then Solemn, which is great because it allows you to ramp, and it also draws your card when it dies. So next up, we have our sacrifice outlets. Now, this is all the ways we're going to sacrifice our creatures to then start reanimating them with Meren. Visceral Seer. This is great because you can sack a creature on your upkeep and then set up your card for your card draw on your turn. Obviously, everything that you sacrifice gives you a experience counter, is great. Altar of Dementia, just great. You can early game, you can mill yourself to get stuff into your graveyard to start reoccurring, which is fantastic stuff. Just be aware that other people play Bajuka Barga and could like absolutely cripple you if you go too heavy on this. If people set up their tops of their libraries as well through scrying or tutoring to the top of their library, obviously you can use Ultra Dementia, sack something and screw them over. If you have the capital, let's say, you can get the other altars, Ashnod's altar and the other one forgets me. I'll pop it up on screen or something for you. So yeah, there's 2 other altars that are great, so you could get those. Priest of Forgotten Gods, absolutely fantastic. The fact that this makes an opponent sacrifice a creature as well means you can leave it up as potential removal, which is great stuff. Roast Rider, once again, comes in. It also gives you a bit of fodder with the goat, so you can then sack that, set up your turn with the scry. Good stuff. Jared, this is great. You can get it back from your graveyard to your hand by sacrificing lands, and you can also then pay to force people to lose life equal to the creature's power for whatever's been sacrificed. So if you happen to make a really big creature, or you've got your Massacre Worm out or something like that, you can then sack that with this. Yes, it'll cost you 3, but somebody else will lose a bunch of life in the process. Next up, we've got Trading Post, which is just absolutely fine card. 1 tap, discard a card, gain life, pay 1 life, create a goat, which is sack fodder, sacrifice a creature, return an artifact from a graveyard to your hand. There's not that many artifacts in this deck. Just remember, Haywire is an artifact creature, so if you do need to get it back later in the game to deal with the One Ring, let's say, this is something you can do. And also sacrifice an artifact, draw a card. So if you've got something like this in play, you can then turn it into card draw. And obviously, the daddy of all sack outlets is Yawgmoth. So yeah, using Yawgmoth with Mikaeus, we can use the +1, -1, -1 counters to weigh each other out and then start to create loops with that. That's the only type of infinite in this deck, by the way. Moving on to our instant speed removal or interaction package now. We've got Tragic Slip. This is pretty much always going to be -13, -13. I like this as well because there's a lot of creatures and stuff opponents have now where things just get really, really big, and this sometimes get indestructible and stuff like that. So being able to minus its toughness is a good way of killing that stuff. Obviously, we've got Infernal Grasp, Shoulder's Edict. I like this one because it forces people to sacrifice Planeswalkers. Yeah, Planeswalkers are very annoying. Beast Within and Crows and Grip. The one thing I am really missing is an Assassin's Trophy, so you could look to add that to your deck as well if you wanted to beef up the instant speed removal interaction. We're going to jump into our enhancers here first. This is basically Mikaeus and Insidious Roots. So this gives non-humans Undying, so they come back. There are a couple of humans within this deck, so just be aware of that. And obviously, whenever something leaves your graveyard, you're going to make a plant with Insidious Roots, which is then also going to ramp you because creature tokens have tap, add 1 mana of any colour, not just plants. So all tokens that you have will have that ability. So that's great stuff. Allows us to ramp. This allows us to bring back so we can sack reoccur things. And as mentioned, we can start making infinite loops with Yawgmoth with the +1, +1 and -1, -1 counters negating each other. Quickly, we have our big plays, which is Live in Death. So yeah, there is another good option of this. Can't remember the name of it, but I'll pop it up on screen. And our protection, which is Spore Frog. So just be careful with this. It's great for a sack outlet, so you can just play it, sack it, instantly give Meren 1 experience, and then bring it straight back. So you can potentially do this every turn to get yourself up quite a bit of mana quite quickly. Quite a bit of experience quite quickly. But if you are using it to protect from some quite big board states your opponents have, just be aware that they might start working together to force you to sack it before somebody else then attacks you, and there's not really much you can do in that instance. So just try and use some politic tactics. So next up is the good stuff. It's the creatures. Because Meren is kind of like a creature-centric deck, like she wants you to play creatures, she wants you to sack those creatures. These creatures need to have something good about them, ETB effects and stuff like that. So this is all creature removal right here. Okay. Oh, I think there's 1 or 2 might not be creature removal. So Haywire Might, like I mentioned earlier, allows you to get rid of cards like the One Ring because it exiles target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. So that's absolutely fantastic. Cankerbloom, yeah, allows us to destroy artifacts, enchantments. We can also proliferate if we need to get that experience counters up. Demon's Disciple, Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, Plaguecrafter. These are all edict effects which force people to sacrifice things. Obviously, Demon's Disciple does Planeswalkers as well. I mentioned I don't like Planeswalkers. Rex Sage, Purification Druid, Foundation Breaker. They all target enchantments and artifacts. So that's great stuff. It's one of the few things that we find hard to interact with because obviously we've got the other edicts for sacrificing creatures. Ravenous Chupacabra obviously deals creatures, but obviously we can target specific things. So if a pesky commander is out or something like that, and obviously if we've got 4 experience, we can potentially do that twice in a turn. Dictator of Erebos just helps us keep control of the board state. Be aware there is another card called Grave Pact, which I think is 4 mana, 1 triple black. It does the same thing. You can put both of these in your deck, but I often find in play groups and the game stores that I go to, too many edict effects makes people sad. So just be careful how much of these you play. And then Massacre Worm, absolutely fantastic against token decks, stuff like that. Just remember, if you play Massacre Worm and then you sack it and bring it back with Meren straight to the battlefield, if you've got enough experience, the -2/-2 will stack, so creatures will have -4/-4 at the end of the turn. If you can do that more than once in each turn, then obviously it's a great way of stacking up some damage and board wiping for your opponents. So now we're on to our Tutor and Reanimator effects. So we have the classic Reanimate, Animate Dead. Great stuff, get stuff back from graveyards. Exactly what we want to be doing. Fauna Shaman. The downside to this is if it needs to tap, so it suffers from summoning sickness, but it means we can discard any creature card into our graveyard to help reoccur with Meren, while also searching our library for whatever we want at that time. Unmarked Grave. Non-legendary card straight to your graveyard, great stuff. I class this as like a tutor effect because we are tutoring through our library to get it to our graveyard, which then Meren can target. Same with Buried Alive, get stuff straight back from the graveyard. Eternal Witness, this is fantastic in this deck because it means if somebody kills off a big dragon on somebody else's board, we can then cast this, get the reanimate back or whatever, and then get that big dragon to fight for us, stuff like that. Because Ewit is any card in graveyard. Necromancy, same as before, Victimize, and then obviously Sidisi, which is just an absolute solid card. Remember, when it enters the battlefield, that's when you exploit, so it could exploit itself, so you can play this. Yes, it then becomes a 5-mana tutor, but if you already have 5 experience, you can just bring it straight back and do it again, and you can tutor for 2 cards in one turn. This is great stuff, and remember, it's tutor for any card, not a creature card. Great card, that one. Okay, so we're on to lands now. We'll do the drain effects later. So there's nothing crazy fancy in here. High Market is just the absolute bomb of a land in this deck. Tap, sacrifice creature, you gain 1 life. Obviously we've got Command Tower. Grim Backwards can also sacrifice things for 4 mana, which is handy in a pinch if you're desperate. From there we've got Guildless Commons, Temple of the False cards. We've got Bajuka Bogs to shut down anybody else's reanimated strategies. Castle Lockwain to help draw us cards. We have the Pathways and all the other dual colour lands. I don't have the Verdant Catacombs yet, the black-green fetch. Then after that, we're running Swamps. I believe it's 10 Swamps, 13 Forests, something like that, or the other way around. Something like that. But yeah, nothing crazy in terms of there. The High Market being the big one, which helps us do some good shenanigans, gives us a sack outlet in our land slot. And lastly, we've got our drain effect. So this is where we're going to be draining our opponent's lives by sacking creatures. So we're going to continue to do what we are normally doing, and in the process start to drain people. So Zulaport Cutthroat, Poison Tipped Arrow, we've got Gary, we've got Sir Conrad and Dreadhound. Those two are almost exactly the same, except Dreadhound costs more. Gary is just a great, it also gains you life. So in a pinch, you can like tutor this up with Sidisi or something like that. If you can get it into play out of your graveyard or whatever, start to reoccur it, then you can start to do some serious damage to people quite quickly. So overall, what do I think of Meren in 2024? She's still a powerhouse, still absolute solid commander. And I think that comes down to a lot of the fact that she triggers on end step, so she's instant value as soon as you play her, and also her reanimation cost is based off experience counters. And obviously this is very hard for your opponents to interact with, so yeah, it just enables you to, even if she dies, you still got your resources available to pull them back. Obviously commanders dying cost 2 more every time you recast them, but that's not really a big deal these days, especially with how much you can ramp. And if you are playing the game quote unquote properly, you are spending your first few turns ramping, setting up, so that cost is less significant until she's been killed 2 or 3 potentially times. So yeah, absolute super strong deck. We've seen loads and loads of synergies recently with graveyard shenanigans and stuff coming back. There is a couple more graveyard decks, I think. Spoiled, was it for Bloomborough or Modern Horizons? I can't remember. We've had so many spoilers for like stuff that's not coming out until like 6 months away. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I believe is coming graveyard wise, whether that's going to be a bunch of reprints or some new stuff for us to play with, who knows. But yeah, I think she's absolute powerhouse. I'm going to jump into doing some mulligans and playing through the first few turns of the game now, so you guys can see how it actually plays out and what to do in certain situations, rather than just going, here's a deck list. So let's jump into that now. Okay, so we're going to start off by doing a couple of mulligans, so you guys can see what you're getting yourselves in for, what type of stuff Meren is able to do. Remember, she is a more of a slow, dirtly, grindier type of deck, so this is not going to be like fill the board state on turn 2, 3, 4 and then blast out and do something crazy. This is more of a wait till turn 4, get Meren out, use those first few turns to set something up, and then we'll start to sack things and go from there. So let's have a look what we draw into. I can hopefully start to advise you as well on what you should keep and what you shouldn't keep. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So we've got a turn 1 play, turn 2 play, and 2 lands. 2 lands is not so great in this deck. We've got an animate dead, but that means nothing because we've got no way of putting stuff in our graveyard just yet, apart from the fauna for discarding cards, which is a little bit slow. If you'd already taken a couple of mulligans, then maybe this is a keepable one. We have got black and green available, and like we say, we do have a turn 1 and turn 2 play. I mean, I suppose we could discard a creature card, so we could discard either of these. We could, and then we can go find a creature. So we could go and fetch another 1 or 2 drop that helps ramp us. So it is a way of playing this hand if you have to. But seeing as commander we get a free mulligan, I'm going to mulligan this. Yep. So we're going to take the free mulligan. I'm going to go in. There's no point looking at the top because, you know, we're not even going to worry about that. There's no need. You've already made your choice. Adding that extra information doesn't change anything. All it does is lead you to potentially make poorer decisions in the future because you gain a bit of information and you go, oh, I could have kept it because I could have drawn into this. But you could say that about any hand, so there is no point in looking. Okay? Right. So we've done the free mulligan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, this looks a little bit better. We've got more lands. We've got turn 1 and turn 3 plays. The turn 3 play allows us to start drawing cards because we can start sacking stuff to Visceral Seer. So that essentially gives us the first 3-4 turns while we're waiting to cast Meren to get some fodder. So this I would keep, so this is why we take the free mulligan. So let's just play through, say, the first 4 turns. So starting off on turn 1, we will draw a card per turn. We've got Sir Conrad. So we'll play our Llanowar Wastes. Or actually, no, we won't. We'd play our Swamp. There's no point in taking the damage. And we could run our Visceral Seer out on turn 1. Yeah? Cool. Untap. Turn 2, we get a Bajuka Bog. If somebody else is on a Reanimator strategy, we can hold on to that. If they're not on a Reanimator strategy, we could look to play this then. Okay? So that's a choice that you've got. Awesome stuff. So we're not going to do anything with our creature. We don't want to risk it dying. We don't want to poke the other players. We just want to be able to sit back and do our own thing. So let's go across to turn 3. We drew into a forest. So at this point, we could just run the forest straight out, or we could run the Llanowar. We can then cast our Grim. Awesome stuff. So we would be tapped out. There we go. And then we can move on to turn 4, in which case you know what we're going to be doing. We are going to be casting our commander. Yeah, there's Sidisi. That's beautiful stuff. So we can now do this. Turn 4, tap all 4. We've got our commander out. Across to turn 5, what are we looking to do on turn 5? We've got enough mana. We're going to cast Sidisi. We'll probably sack the Visceral Seer to Sidisi so we can go tutor for a card, which might be some more sacrifice fodder, something like that. In fact, let's just play it out so we can see. So we've got Sakura Tribe Elder. Play our 5th. We'll do that. We'll sack this. We're going to draw a card when another creature dies. We're going to gain an experience. Awesome. With that experience, we're going to be bringing Visceral Seer straight back to the battlefield at the end of the turn. We've now got a Living Death, which is one of our big plays, along with Sir Conrad, which can help deal some crazy damage to opponents. So from here, we can just pass the turn, and hopefully, with our tutor, we can get something else, like a Sakura Tribe Elder or some other type of ramp spell if you wanted to ramp if the game is quite slow. Or if you're looking to start making some plays and making some moves, you can start searching for things that you can fodder, such as your what's the giant 6-mana zombie that makes the 2/2 zombies when it enters the battlefield? Help me out here, people. Why is my mind gone blank and I forgot his name? Oh dear. Oh, you could also get Yawgmoth or Grey Merchant if you wanted to start going down those routes, but those start to attract attention very quickly. What's the name? Grave Titan. There we are. So we could get Grave Titan because he comes into the battlefield. You know, it makes the 2 zombies. We can sack him to the Visceral Seer. You know, we can then reanimate him. Yes, we won't have enough wowzers. We don't have enough experience for to come back to the battlefield, but you know, he still goes back to our hand. This is what new sleeves get you. Anyway, that's a quick run through of what you can expect. I hope you enjoyed. Well, there we go. I've made a mess of everything on the table, but hey ho, that is Meren. As obviously just a quick overview of the first 4 or 5 turns. Remember, most games these days, according to the video and stats that EDH Rec did, end on around turn 9, 9.5, something like that. So we were in a very good position there on turn 5 to be starting to tutor and reoccur things quite well to stack up that experience. So 3 more turns and we could have probably have started to eke out the game and put some pressure on winning. And obviously, depending on what our opponents were doing, would depend on if they interacted with us or dealt with other people's stuff. So this is the downside to goldfishing. You can't get a true representation, but it does give you a bit of an idea, a bit of a flavour of what you can and cannot do. Once again, thank you all for watching. If you would like to see more deck techs and bits and bobs, obviously subscribe. I'm working on a few more. The current deck that I'm working on is a Voya deck, which I know is very popular right now. But I am trying to tweak my list and do it in my way, so it will be slightly different to what other people do. But yes, thank you all for watching. I appreciate the support as always, and I will see you all in the next video.